Most people think rent is becoming unaffordable because landlords are just greedy. And while there are definitely bad actors out there in every industry, that explanation is way too simple. The reality is, housing costs are getting hit from every direction. Insurance is going up, property taxes, interest rate, construction costs, labor costs are all up. And all of those costs eventually flow into housing. So today, I want to break down why rents keep rising and why new housing is becoming harder to build and why a lot of people do not realize how fragile the housing system actually is right now. And this is not about politics. It's about math. Because once you understand how the money flows, you start understanding why housing affordability is becoming such a major problem across the country. Most people only see the final rent payment. They don't see everything behind the building. Apartment buildings operate like a business. They have expenses, debt, insurance, payroll, maintenance, utilities, taxes, repairs, and over the last several years, almost every single one of those categories has increased. Now let's start with insurance because this is one of the biggest hidden issues in housing right now. A lot of people have no idea how expensive insurance has become for apartment buildings. In some markets, insurance premiums have doubled or sometimes even tripled. Why? Natural disasters, rebuilding costs, lawsuits, inflations, more expensive materials. Insurance companies are having to pay out larger claims, so premiums rise. And here's the thing people don't understand. You cannot operate a building without insurance. It's not optional. So when insurance costs rise dramatically, those costs become part of the operating expenses of housing. And if the operating expenses rise enough, owners eventually have to make adjustments somewhere. Now let's move into property taxes. This is another major pressure point. Cities rely heavily on property taxes because they are one of the most stable forms of revenue. Cities still have to pay for roads, infrastructure, police, fire department, schools, public services. And when city costs rise or property value rise, property taxes often rise too. Again, this is not political. This is budget math. Property taxes become part of the operating costs of housing. And over time, those costs influence rent. Now combine that with interest rates. This is where things really changed. For years, developers and investors were borrowing money at historically low interest rates. Money was cheap, but that changed fast. Today, borrowing costs are dramatically higher, and that affects everything. A project that worked financially at 3% interest might completely fail at 6 or 7% interest. That is not an exaggeration. The monthly debt payments can become so high that the project no longer makes financial sense. And when projects stop making sense financially, developers stop building them. That's one of the biggest things people miss. Housing shortages don't happen overnight. They happen slowly, quietly, one stalled project at a time, one canceled project at a time, one delayed development at a time. Now let's talk about construction costs, because this is another area where people underestimate how expensive housing has become to build. Materials are more expensive. Labor is more expensive. Permits, engineering, environmental, parking requirements, delays cost money. And individually, a lot of these things sound reasonable. But when you stack them all together, the math changes dramatically. Housing does not become unaffordable from one giant thing. It becomes unaffordable from hundreds of smaller costs stacking on top of each other. And here's the part people really don't see. Developers spend massive amounts of money before construction even begins. Architecture, engineering, environmental reports, legal, traffic studies, interest carry. Pre-development alone can cost millions of dollars on larger projects before a shovel even touches the ground. And none of that guarantees the project will actually get built. A lot of projects die before construction even gets started, quietly, because the numbers no longer work. Now, let's talk about policy for a second, because policy absolutely affects housing costs. not always intentionally, but through consequences. Every regulation has a cost. Every delay has a cost. Every requirement, every approval. And again, individually, these things may sound small, but stacked together, they affect affordability. For example, if a project is delayed 6 months waiting for approvals, that developer is still paying interest, still paying consultants, still paying carrying costs. And eventually, those costs get absorbed somewhere in the housing system. Now, here's where people really push back. They say, well, developers are still making money, right? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But the important thing to understand is that developers are taking an enormous amount of risk. Many projects today barely pencil at all, especially workforce housing, especially affordable housing. In fact, many affordable housing projects literally require government subsidies, tax credits, and bond financing just to exist. That alone should tell you how difficult the math has become. If affordable housing was easy to build profitably, developers would already be building it everywhere. But many deals simply do not work anymore without outside support. And when fewer projects work, fewer projects get built. That slows housing supply. And when supply slows while demand stays strong, prices rise. That includes rent. Now let's talk about something else people misunderstand. Luxury apartments. People say they only build luxury housing. But here's the reality. New construction is expensive. And I mean extremely expensive. So naturally, new buildings tend to enter the market at higher rents because replacement costs are higher. But over time, housing ages. Today's luxury housing often becomes tomorrow's workforce housing. That filtering process is part of how housing markets evolve over decades. Now, obviously, that process is not perfect. But if we stop building housing entirely, the pressure gets even worse because demand does not disappear. People still need places to live. People still form households, still move for jobs, still have families. And if housing supply cannot keep up, prices rise. That is just basic economics. And that's why housing is such a difficult issue to solve, because it's not one problem. It's many problems stacked together. Interest rates, insurance, property taxes, construction costs, regulation, supply shortages, financing challenges, labor shortages. All of these things interact with each other. Housing prices are not controlled by one single thing. They are the result of thousands of financial decisions stacking together throughout the entire system. And again, this is not about blaming one group. This is about understanding how costs move through the housing system. Good intentions can still create expensive outcomes. And sometimes policies designed to help housing can unintentionally increase the cost of building housing. That is the reality developers, cities, renters, and homeowners are all trying to navigate right now. At the end of the day, housing affordability affects almost everyone. Renters feel it, homeowners feel it, developers, cities, and until more people understand how the math actually works, it becomes very hard to create real solutions. Housing is not becoming unaffordable because of one single villain. It is becoming unaffordable because costs are stacking faster than incomes. And that is the bigger picture most people never see. If this helped you understand the bigger picture, please like and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.